We had a great winter conditioning. The players have really responded. We've had some guys step up in a leadership role for us out here in the winter conditioning. But we got great weather. We're excited about practice today, getting 3 practices in this week before the break, and then come back on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule up until the spring game. But looking forward to getting out there and seeing what some of the younger players can do. We'll have pretty thorough workouts. Obviously, we'll be in shorts and a helmet for a certain amount of days. We can't be in pads. But we'll be out there a while. More of an extended practice than what would be in the fall for us. We have a number of guys that need quality work. We're 3 deep on defense, only 2.5 deep on offense. So we won't be able to work as many players on the offensive side because we've got a big class coming in. Of skill players and offensive linemen, but as I said, we're really excited. Look forward to getting out there today.
Sort of strange around Stillwater, isn't it, Mike? Be deeper on defense than on offense.
It is, and when we went over our numbers and we're setting up our practice schedules the last month, it's exciting for me to see the youth and the depth that we have on defense and the direction we're going. We'll be better on defense. Next year will be better the next few years. We have a number of young players that can really contribute and help us on that side of the ball. And so it's always been a goal of ours to try to get enough depth to play a number of guys like we have on offense. And I see this as the first spring that we really had that opportunity.
Talk a little bit about Van coming in, and obviously you guys have to replace Joe's and all he did for you guys.
Van has been a good addition for us. This will be the first opportunity for me to see him up close, but he's had very good jobs, been in programs that have competed at this level, and has been at Tulsa and done a nice job for them, and he's got experience in recruiting in the state of Texas. So he'll pick up where Joe left off at the safety position, and then with special teams, we'll divide it up this spring and make those decisions at the end of spring of what we want to do for the fall.
Mike, it's been a while since you've had a quarterback competition here. Can you just comment on that and what you're looking for out of those guys?
Well, the most important thing is leadership, and none of the 3 have had any time on the field with an offense in a crucial time in the game, in my opinion. They'll have a good feel for what we're doing. They're intelligent players. They've been here other than Wes. And so toughness and leadership and understanding the offense, and we'll try to put them in as many situations as we can this spring that are game-like to see how they handle themselves, and we'll split the reps equal and let them go play.
New quarterbacks, Mike, how much does that change tempo?
Shouldn't change any. Our tempo should stay the same. The adjustments that are made at a fast pace will take a little more time with Brandon being gone, but Brandon's first year here, the adjustments he made were good. His second year here, the adjustments he made were great. And so that's due to the experience. But we want to play fast. We want to play with a lot of speed. And those guys should learn to make the adjustments based on the defense at a faster rate as we progress through the spring and even fall camp.
Do you think it's important for Shelf to be ready to step up as a starter as a program? Or do you think the quarterback situation's a good kind of competition to have where your program's at?
Well, I don't want to have 2 quarterbacks. Okay, I've done that before, and I'm not saying we won't, because nobody knows what's going to happen in the next few months, but I think it's better to have a starter as a quarterback and then go into the season and say, he's our starter, and we're going to stay with him. And not that if he doesn't perform well, we'll give another guy a chance in 2 quarters. I'm not really involved in a rotation. You may be asking if it's healthy to have that for the spring. I think it's healthy to have competition at every position, but the quarterback position is different. I think your team looks to your quarterback as a leader. I've said this before, that most teams that have success at any level in football have a good quarterback, unless their defense can just stop people.
I mean, like as far as that depth in your program, like last year, Johnny Thomas was out, and so Dace Wondlow stepped up and led
Right.
team tackles. Do you think it's important as a program to have that depth?
Yeah, and there's no question that our depth across the board is better now than it was 3 or 4 years ago. It's difficult to replace Brandon Whedon. It's difficult to replace Blackman. It's difficult for us to replace the experience that Ricchetti and Jamie Blatnick brought to the table. But young players will perform better than you think when it's their turn to play. I'm not here to make any predictions on what's going to happen at the quarterback spot. I know that we have players that will compete there that will perform better this spring and early in camp than they would have last year because they knew that they weren't the guy.
What about special packages? I know the Wildcat has kind of become old, but you saw what Oklahoma did, and I remember Bill Young last year before the Veteran game talking about how tough it was to get ready for that package, because when the quarterback is a primary ball carrier, it makes it difficult on a defense. I mean, you've got some guys who can run the ball. Is that even in the realm of possibility?
Oh, I don't know that it's out of the possibility. I think the best answer for that question is that we want to run our offense. And what we've done here the last 2 years is what we believe in. And that'll vary based on who our quarterback is from this point on, whether it's these 3 guys or whoever would be here 6 or 8 years from now. And if we have a player that gives us an advantage with a wrinkle or two that may allow him to run the ball some, I would guess that our offensive staff would want to implement those plays. But we don't want to go back to the plays that we were running when Zach was here. Okay, we don't want to run our quarterback and let him take hits. So we have our system in place, and we'll vary it just a little based on who ends up being the starting quarterback.
Maybe what Robert's asking is, you don't run that package with your quarterback, you bring somebody off the bench to run. Is that something you'd be open to?
I am, yes. I've had minimal discussions with our offensive staff on it, and I think that it's something that they're looking at. It comes down to, you guys know, it comes down to how many reps can you put into another guy coming in and running a few plays in a game. But, maybe a better answer is 3rd and short, 4th and short goal line. Is there a chance that we could have another little package? I think there's a possibility of that based on what a certain player may bring to the table.
Talking out there to Daquan Love, who obviously, even though he's fairly young, is going to be a leader. I mean, he acts like a leader. I asked him, I said, is it out of the realm with an All-American safety graduating that next year's secondary could be the best in school history? And he said, no, it's not out of the realm. And in fact, he goes, we're expecting to be the best secondary in school history.
I think they'll be better than we were this year. Markel Martin's a great player for us and brought a lot to the table. But you have Gilbert back, you have Broderick back. We have a few young corners that should contribute. I'm excited about the freshmen, Mike Tavius and Jonovan, who redshirted, their athletic ability and what they bring to the table. They're not very big, but they got really good hips. They're flexible and they're tough, or they've shown signs of being tough up to this point. And with what we have at the safety spot, as a group, and when I talk about the group, the safety position, the depth that they offer and the depth of corner position, we would like for Justin Gilbert to not have to play 70 plays a game. We'd like for him to play 45 and then somebody else play the other 30 and use him in special teams, maybe 50-20 in that, I think, if at 50-25, somewhere in that area. But we've had safeties. Markel's played 80 plays a game, and we would like to think we're far enough along that we have other players that can contribute and get those guys off the field some.
What are you expecting from Devin Hedgepeth? I know he isn't participating in the spring ball, but as far as his recovery process, are you expecting him to be able to compete for his job back once the season rolls around?
Once he gets healthy and goes through our running program and gets back out there with us in the fall, we'll have to reevaluate where he's at. But we're expecting him to recover and to compete and give us a chance to roll him in some early in the season. An Achilles injury is difficult to put a timetable on, and so his recovery up to this point has been good.
Mike, along the lines of health, you took a calculated risk last August. You said, look, I'm going to do things to protect my football team. maybe sacrifice a little of the physicality. Your team rewarded you. They gave you the physical play you wanted. In spring, there's that time to heal between next fall, but how much do you protect in the spring?
Well, we won't have a full scrimmage in the spring. We'll continue with the plan we had last spring. I was comfortable with the way it worked. Even though we have younger players, I believe that we can have our 2 or 3 live scrimmages, but we don't have to tackle all the way to the ground and take shots on players. Either way, cuts or guys that are extended out looking for a football. I thought it worked last year, and we'll practice the same way that we did last spring.
Can you talk a little bit about the wide receiver spot or the receiver spot and who's going to have to step up, obviously to fill Blackman's role, but just to get enough receivers to play every day?
Well, we have to have some of these younger players contribute, but we do have some maturity coming back. I mean, you guys are aware of Isaiah and Tracy and the guys that give us some experience. And I say young guy, but we also have Blake in here who's a new player for us, but is more experienced. So between him, between Horton, you have Isaiah, you have Tracy, and some of those other younger players that are on our team, Carr, Glidden, those guys, they'll need to contribute. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but Blackman's hard to replace. And the combination of those guys need to give us enough plays, very similar to what we looked for from Jeremy and Joe Randall with the departure of Kendall. As a group, they got to make plays, okay? But I don't think there's any question that the ability that Justin Blackman had to make a play one-on-one at a crucial point in the game is different than most other players. And so that guy hasn't shown up on our field yet. That's why he's going to be a top 5 pick. But as a group, those guys have to find a way to overcome that until somebody steps up and ends up being what you call a marquee player at that position.
Not trying to overhype a guy, but you watch Blake's tape from Scottsdale, and he does some of that stuff against junior college competition. Did Rob give you an idea of what he's looked like in the program, in the off season since he got here? Just as an athlete?
Well, he's a big physical player, and he has competitive speed like most good players do. They play faster than they run when you have a watch on them. We brought him in at 218. He's 240 now. So he's really in good physical condition. But you still got to make plays. As we know, we talk in recruiting all the time. The height, the weight, the speed, the measurables are all important, but the most important aspect is, can a guy make plays? When they kick it off and they snap the ball, can you move the ball forward and score points, or can you stop somebody? And he's been very successful up to this time, and he's a great fit for our offense. He snatches the ball really well. He's got good body control. He's going to have a mass of body there to get on backers and to get on safeties, because we'll be able to play him inside quite a bit. And then he has a little bit more breakaway speed than what you would think for a guy that weighs 240 pounds.
At 240, do you see him as more of a tight end who can block or an inside receiver?
I hope that he can attach some and block and give us a little bit different twist with him being in the game. If you have 3 receivers in the game and he's in the game, you could have a tight end attached in a pretty basic set that you see across the country, or he could split out and put you into 4 wide receivers. And what that allows you to make different protection calls and different route calls based on him being in the game, and it should help minimize the calls that a defensive coordinator can make, because if you have that guy attached, obviously he can be in protection or go out on a route. If he's spread out, then he can't be in protection. So you could encourage or discourage, depending on what their thought process is, zone pressures or blitzes based on him being in the game. So I'm hoping that we can attach him some and do some things with him. I know Todd's thinking like that, and then also split him out.
Coach Gundy, linebacking crew's pretty solid. Coming back, Coach Young seemed pretty excited about the group that's back.
Well, I think Coach Young and Glenn Spencer are very excited, and they should be. It's the best group of linebackers that we've had here that I can ever remember as a player or coach in all the time that I've been here. We have more players who can run fast and have natural savvy to go make a play. They're just very inexperienced. As we all know, they can gain experience. It's hard to take a guy that's got experience and make him faster and make him want to hit you. But I see a very competitive position with a number of guys that can make plays, and some of them are experienced and some of them aren't. But I'm looking forward to the development of the young players, which would allow those guys to play 30 or 40 plays a game, and then another guy come in and play 30 or 40 plays a game, which would keep that guy fresh, not only for that game, but through a 13-game schedule. And that's really one thing that we consider now is important is anything that we do is how can we keep our team healthy for game 11, 12, and 13 like they are for games 1, 2, and 3.
So you've taken Tyler Johnson and you moved him from middle linebacker to end. Is he, in the spring, maybe the biggest X factor you got on defense to see if he can play there and give you, I would think, a real legitimate rotation at every spot?
There are two things we're looking for there. One, we moved Nigel to end, and then we moved Tyler out there.
But you're confident already that Nigel can play that, right?
He should, and he should be pretty good at it because you take a guy that's 270 pounds, as strong as he is, that has good feet, and he becomes more of a pass rushing factor than he does inside. And so we take him and put him on the edge where you can isolate him on a tackle one-on-one. And then if we can get Tyler to understand the principle of rushing the passer and then defending his own on the run, the issue with him will be, can he hold his own on a direct running game? If he can, he should be a pass rushing threat because he's fast and he's active and he is a physical football player. So we're hoping that those two will give us more of a pass rush because that's what the games come down to. You got to have guys on the edge that rush the quarterback that can put pressure on him because if you don't, everybody can play catch now. And those guys also have to be able to run lateral some because of all the quick screens that go on the flat. And so our thought is to put those two guys on the edge and improve our pass rush and also allow them to run to the flat. And then you add Barnett and David L. and Rogers and Littlehead and those guys that have some experience inside that were just average guys. They should be better just by default. I mean, just because they're a year older. So they've worked hard. They've improved in the off season. You tie that in with experience, and we should be better inside. Now by moving them outside, that X factor is really both of those guys learning how to play end and giving us a pass rush threat.
You didn't even mention Castleman and Mustafa. So
There's actually too many of them. I can't keep up with all of them. Yeah.
It's a good problem to have, though, compared to where you were.
Right. Right. And I should have mentioned them because especially Castleman, he looks really good right now. He's experienced. He got out there and ran into that freshman wall at those linemen. We didn't want to play him last year. We had to. In case we'd have had injuries, we would have had to have an experienced player to put in there if we'd have got in a championship game. So we played him. He wasn't ready. He hit that wall, and he just got mashed at the end of the year. He didn't get to play as much, but he's 300 pounds now. He's active. He looks good. He feels good. And then Mustafa's a guy that didn't play but has got a high motor who should get just beat up in there this spring. That'll just wear him out, and then it'll make him tougher for the fall, and he should go through some of those growing pains that Castleman went through last year. But he'll have a year ahead of him because he's been in the weight room a year with Coach Glass.
So I think, at least in my opinion, your best coaching job was at 09. And you got 9 wins out of a team that probably should have won 6. Yes, suspended.
That's correct. I would agree with that.
And so I just wonder if you try to look ahead at this year's team this season, are you going to have to coach your guts out again to get?
There's going to be a lot of.
This team, or are you so much further ahead across the board on talent?
Well, I think we have more depth and we have more speed and athleticism than we did in 08 and 09. And I know we had Dez, I know we had Kendall, I know we had Zach, but there was quite a drop off. There's not as much a drop off, in my opinion, now with the depth and the athleticism. We just don't have that much experience. The two things that I think are important that I mentioned in the staff meeting is there's not very many guys on our team that haven't won a lot of football games in college, so they understand winning. So it's our responsibility as a coaching staff to put them in position to win again, and if they start winning, they'll get right back in the same frame of mind they were in. And we hit a home run a few years ago because of Brandon, and Kendall played really well, and Justin Blackman stepped up and became a marquee player, a Blitnikoff winner. And so we were able to win 11 when a lot of people thought we would just win 6 or 7. And so, preseason magazines aren't going to be that fired up about us. Everybody makes predictions, selling papers and magazines and things like that, and we're not going to be ranked very high. But I expect our players to play very well. I expect our coaches to put them in position to perform within experience, meaning don't ask them to do something that they can't do. Let them mature, and we'll grow. And we can go in the game with 5 plays that we know what to do, or we can go in there with 15 of them and we only know what to do on 10 of them. Then those other 5 are a waste of time. So the attitude's good. Our coaches believe in our players. There's just not as much experience. And as we all know, you're looked at differently across the country when you don't have a returner at quarterback. But I expect our guys to play well, and I expect to win a lot of football games. How many, I don't know. That's all based on the chemistry and the leadership that the players that are on our team right now have to take over. Robert mentioned Daquan Lowe, Isaiah, Tracy Moore, Lane Taylor, Nigel, Broderick, Gilbert. Those guys have to step up now and lead the team, because we were very fortunate with Rachetti and Blackman and Justin and Whedon. And you had Levy and you had Grant Garner. We had a group of guys that carried this team for 2 years. Well, they're not here anymore. So the second wave has to step up in order for us to continue to have success, and it's all based on what they want to do. And from what I saw in winter conditioning, I'm very confident that this team will play very well, because it's important to them. We've limited our distractions. College football is about avoiding distractions and trying to stay on the straight line, and we all know that that's the battle that we fight every day. If they can avoid distractions, continue to work hard, they'll be fine.
Mike, can you address what you want to do this spring with special teams? How much you work on that? And then also the new rule. Quinn had 61 touchbacks last year. They're moving it to the 35. Now, they will move the touchback where it'll come out to the 25 instead of the 20, but I'm guessing you're willing to let Quinn boot the heck out of the ball and trade that 5 yards.
Right. Our special teams won't change for the spring. We have a routine that we're very comfortable with, and the coaches that are coaching the individual positions on special teams that have coached it the last few years here will do the same today. Okay? And so our development for our kickers and punters and snappers and holders will be the same. And then in the fall, we'll have it, we'll delegate it out, or we'll put one person in charge of it. The kickoff rule is definitely going to be an impact. What that allows is certain teams to take advantage of the ability to kick the ball out that may have used sky kicks. In 2011, our average starting point, if the kickoff line would have been the way it is in 12, would have been a -1. Okay. Last year, if you take the average, it was the 4-yard line for us. If you eliminate sky kicks, pooches, onside, all those things, you take all the kickoffs where the other team tried to kick it out, we started on the 4-yard line. That was our average. So if you put 5 yards in it, it's going to be a -1. So there'll be some decision-making that has to take place with the staffs across the country, because you have to make that decision of how deep do you want to bring the ball out, or do you just want to take it on 25? And then the flip side of that is, do you just want to kick it out of the end zone, or do you want to try to sky kick it and down them inside the 10-yard line and hope that your group can cover? So I think it's a good rule for 2 reasons. One, because it should lessen the violent hits on kickoff and kickoff return. And I'm as traditional as anybody. I want the game to stay the same. But if you watch the hits that take place on tape and you run them back and forth, I'm not sure you'd want your kid out there being involved in kickoff and kickoff return. So I think it's a good rule. And 2, there'll be more decisions that have to be made by coaches on how we want to play the kickoff, or how you want to handle the kickoff, whether you just want to knock it out or see if you want to sky kick it and down them inside the 10.
Mike, sons of coaches like J.W. Walsh, how valuable are assets are they to your program, and do you notice that they progress a lot faster than ones who, just kids who aren't sons of coaches?
Well, I think there's an advantage to being a son of a coach. You know, JW's dad has been very successful, and you know, he's eating breakfast every day with a guy that lives the game. So it's an advantage for coaches' kids. They progress quicker because they understand the routine. They understand the hard work. They understand the discipline, the structure. They show up on time. They've seen what their dads have gone through, and they've heard them talk about players that have had success based on their ability to do the things right all the time. And so that's what coaches' kids bring to the table. Now, it's not a given. We've had some coaches' kids that didn't pan out. But most of the coaches' kids that we've had have done very well because they understand the routine.
Coach, can you talk a little bit about your 2012 schedule, and particularly the off week before and after the Texas game?
Well, we're all given a schedule, and that's just the way it is. I think the Big 12 office does the best they can. I don't think they're partial to anybody. When I looked at it, of course, you get comments from everybody. I didn't even know the. I mean, people find out before I do. I'd go somewhere and they'd ask me about it, and I hadn't even seen it. But when I looked at it and I compared everybody in the league, I don't think that anybody was given any more of a favor. I think that I would prefer to not have my open dates the way they are, but everybody had to take a hit in certain areas because of the adjustment of the league. I think the answer is to keep the league intact and not allow it to happen again, and they can get it all balanced out. But I thought they did a good job. I mean, you got to play them all anyway. You know, either way.
Back to the special teams. Do you like the rule, as you said, but do you feel like short term is the disadvantage to your team when you have a kicker like Quinn, and then you have Gilbert, who's a threat to return it? Do you feel like it's a short term a disadvantage?
Well, it just depends on how you look at it. And we could sit in here and talk about it, and some people would say it is and some people would say it's not. If you allow Quinn to kick the ball, there's a good chance there won't be many returns against us because he averaged a -3 on his kicks last year. So you push it on back there, you wouldn't think people are going to return it, which then means that if you're a successful offense and you kick off a lot, you have to hold your breath a lot on kickoffs because the more you kick off, percentages tell you that they have a chance to return one every now and then because you're doing it more. If you kick off 40 times a year, or if you kick off 80 times a year, that gives them twice as much chance to return one every so often. Well, with the new rule, if you kick it out all the time, you don't have to worry about that. They start on the 25. So we tend to look at it that way. I would like to see Gilbert return it more, but Coach Snyder's got a guy that he'd like to see return it more, and I'm sure that Texas has one. I don't know if that little guy's back or not. Is that little guy? That's good. I'm sure they got another one down there though that can return. So I think it works out both ways for everybody.
This format to go a week and then have spring break and then come back for a couple weeks. I guess what do you like about that format? I guess kind of getting them going and giving them some time off.
We have the helmet and pad helmet with no pads, and so I'm not really sure why we do that. Why we don't wear shoulder pads, but I don't make the rules. It gives us a chance to go out and knock those out and have one real practice before break, and then let them go. And then when we come back, we'll have another short practice with just a helmet that Monday. And then from that point on, we can wear shoulder pads and actually have a real practice. And that's really all there is to it. Some people start earlier. We choose to start a little bit later. It gives Coach Glass an additional week in the weight room. And our winter conditioning, which our winter conditioning is more about developing team chemistry and the players kind of looking at each other and deciding who really wants to be out there. So we think that's more important than starting earlier for spring ball and spreading it out.
How many times a day do fans, students ask you who's going to play quarterback next year?
Quite a bit. I haven't been on campus as much lately, but you get that question a lot. And, justifiably so. Everybody's excited about that and wants to know the direction we're going. But we've got young men that are competing for the job that, as I said earlier, will play better than what people think. And they need to concern themselves with doing the best they can do and improve each day. And they can't live up to where Brandon Whedon was. You can't do that. And so they just need to worry about themselves and get better and develop good leadership skills and try to get the respect of the team.
What's your plan, Mike, on announcing? You plan to announce who you selected?
I would like to after spring ball. I would like to make a decision after spring ball, so going into summer workouts, which are so important, we would know who our quarterback is. I don't know if I have that luxury or not, but and I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm not really excited about the team not knowing who their quarterback is all summer. So as soon as it's established, then we would like to say, you're the starter, you get this many reps. You're the backup, you get this many reps, you're the third team guy, or divide the 2 and 3 up. So to answer your question, if we have that luxury of naming a starter at the end of spring practice or with 4 or 5 practices left, if somebody really takes off, we'll want to do it as quick as possible.
But you won't do that in the spring though, Mike, unless you have real clear separation, right?
Right. And what you're saying is right. We won't do it at all until we know for sure who it is. But I would just assume somebody take it and run with it, because I think it helps the leader, the development of your team if they know who your quarterback is.